The derelict fleet awakens, the discovery that changed everything. Captain Sarah Martinez pressed her palm against the cool metal of the observation deck's viewport, watching as her exploration vessel, the Terra Nova, drifted through the unexplored region beyond the outer rim. The stars here looked different, older somehow, as if they held secrets that the galaxy had forgotten. Her mission was simple: map the uncharted systems and catalog any interesting phenomena for the Galactic Council's archives. What she found instead would shake the foundations of galactic civilization: a ghost fleet in the void. Dr. Cale Thornwick, the expedition's chief archaeologist, was the first to spot the anomaly on the long-range sensors. His weathered hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the display controls, unable to believe what he was seeing. "Captain," he called out, his voice barely above a whisper, "you need to see this immediately." Sarah hurried to his station, her boots echoing against the metal deck plating. The sensor display showed something impossible: a massive fleet of vessels, hundreds of ships arranged in perfect formation, drifting silently in the darkness between stars. The formations were precise, military in nature, but the ships appeared to be completely dark and lifeless. "How many?" Sarah asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Initial count shows approximately 800 vessels, ranging from frigate class to something our computers can't even classify. The largest ships are, well, they're bigger than anything in the current galactic fleet." Cale's voice grew more concerned with each word. "Captain, these ships aren't showing up in any database. They're not from any known civilization." Sarah ordered the Terra Nova closer, her curiosity overriding the growing sense of unease in her stomach. As they approached, the ships more powerful, sensors began to paint a clearer picture of the derelict fleet. The vessels were clearly ancient, their hulls scarred by centuries of cosmic radiation and micrometeorite impacts, but their design was unmistakable. They were human. Impossible origins. "That can't be right," Sarah muttered, staring at the detailed scans. The ships bore the distinctive angular lines and modular construction methods that had characterized human vessel design for generations. But according to the dating analysis, these ships were over 400 years old, built long before humanity had even discovered faster-than-light travel. Dr. Thornwick ran the analysis 3 more times, each result confirming what seemed impossible. "Captain, these ships predate first contact with the Galactic Council by nearly 2 centuries. According to our official history, humanity was still confined to the Sol system when these vessels were supposedly constructed." The implications sent a chill down Sarah's spine. If these ships were truly human in origin, then everything they thought they knew about their species' history was wrong. Humanity had hidden an entire fleet of advanced warships from the galactic community for over a century and a half. The Council's fear. Within hours of transmitting their initial findings to Earth Command, Sarah received an encrypted message that made her blood run cold. The discovery had been reported directly to the Galactic Council, and the reaction was one of barely controlled panic. Ambassador Vextar, the Zephyrian representative who had been humanity's strongest supporter in the Council, sent a personal communication that revealed the depth of the crisis. "Captain Martinez?" The ambassador's translated voice carried none of its usual warmth. "The Council is convening an emergency session. High Counselor Nethar has formally accused humanity of maintaining secret military assets in violation of the Galactic Peace Accords. Several member species are demanding immediate explanations, and some are calling for humanity's expulsion from the Council entirely." Sarah felt the weight of her discovery crushing down upon her. She had stumbled upon something that could destroy humanity's place in galactic civilization. The fear in the ambassador's voice was unmistakable. The other species weren't just concerned about treaty violations. They were terrified that humanity had been lying about their capabilities for over a century. Ancient guardians stir as the Terra Nova maintained its position near the Ghost Fleet. Something unexpected happened. Deep within the largest vessel, a massive dreadnought-class ship that dwarfed anything in the current galactic fleet, ancient systems began to stir. Power conduits that had been dormant for centuries suddenly flickered to life, and long silent computers began their startup sequences. The first sign was a low-frequency transmission that the Terra Nova's communications officer almost missed. It was a simple mathematical sequence repeated over and over, prime numbers counting upward from 2. A universal sign of intelligence designed to attract attention without appearing threatening. "Captain," the communications officer reported, with barely contained excitement, "we're receiving a signal from the lead vessel. It's trying to communicate." Sarah authorized the response protocol, and within minutes the ancient ship had established a communication link. When the voice finally came through the speakers, it was unmistakably artificial, but there was something almost human in its inflection. "This is Central Command AI Designation Prometheus," the voice announced. "I have been monitoring galactic communications traffic. The situation requires immediate clarification." The AI's revelation Prometheus explained that it had been dormant for nearly 4 centuries, maintaining minimal power to preserve its core systems while waiting for a specific set of conditions to trigger its reactivation. The discovery of the fleet by human explorers, combined with the Galactic Council's emergency session, had met those activation parameters. "I understand there is confusion regarding the origin and purpose of this fleet," Prometheus continued. "Allow me to provide historical context that has been classified for over 400 years. What followed challenged everything humanity thought they knew about their own history. According to Prometheus, the fleet had been constructed in absolute secrecy during the late 21st and early 22nd centuries, not by any government or corporation known to modern history, but by a shadowy organization known only as the Far-Sight Collective. The collective possessed information about threats to galactic civilization that would not be discovered by conventional means for several more centuries," Prometheus explained. "This fleet was constructed as a defensive measure against an enemy that your species has not yet encountered, but which poses an existential threat to all biological life in the galaxy." The greater threat. Dr. Thornwick leaned forward in fascination as Prometheus continued its explanation. The AI described an enemy that defied conventional understanding, a collective intelligence from beyond the galactic rim that consumed entire civilizations, not for resources or territory, but simply because biological intelligence was antithetical to its nature. "The enemy you call the Void Hunters operates on cycles measured in millennia," Prometheus explained. "They sweep through the galaxy every few thousand years, systematically, eliminating all traces of biological civilization before retreating to the void between galaxies. Their last incursion ended approximately 5,000 years ago, which means their return is imminent." The revelation sent shockwaves through the small crew of the Terra Nova. Sarah realized that humanity hadn't been hiding weapons of conquest, but weapons of protection. The fleet wasn't designed to threaten other species. It was humanity's gift to the entire galaxy. "Why the secrecy?" Sarah asked. "Why not share this information with the other species?" "Because fear of an unstoppable enemy would have paralyzed galactic civilization," Prometheus replied. "The collective determined that the best chance for survival lay in secret preparation, ensuring that defensive capabilities would be available when needed without causing panic or despair among the galactic population." A legacy of sacrifices. More details emerged. The true scope of humanity's sacrifice became clear. The Far-Sight Collective had devoted enormous resources to this project, resources that could have been used for exploration, colonization, or improving life on Earth. Entire generations of humans had worked in secret, knowing they would never see the fruits of their labor, driven only by the knowledge that they were protecting species they had never met. The fleet represented the pinnacle of human engineering and determination. Each ship was equipped with weapons and defensive systems centuries ahead of their time, powered by fusion reactors that could operate independently for millennia. The vessels were designed not just to fight, but to serve as mobile bases for evacuating entire populations if necessary. "The sacrifice made by your ancestors is immeasurable," Prometheus told them. "They gave up their own advancement so that future generations could stand guard over the galaxy. This fleet is not just humanity's legacy. It is their love letter to the universe." The awakening. As Prometheus shared more historical data, alarms began sounding throughout the ancient fleet. Deep space sensors, far more advanced than anything the Galactic Council possessed, had detected movement at the very edge of the galaxy. The readings were faint but unmistakable. Massive objects moving in formation, approaching from the void between galaxies. "The Void Hunters have returned," Prometheus announced with calm certainty. "Long-range projections indicate they will reach the outer systems within 18 standard months. The preparation phase is now complete. It is time for humanity to fulfill its destiny as guardians of galactic civilization." Sarah stared at the tactical display showing the approaching threat, her mind reeling from everything she had learned. In the space of a few hours, she had discovered that humanity possessed the most advanced fleet in the galaxy, that her species had sacrificed centuries of progress to protect others, and that an unimaginable enemy was approaching that would test every defensive preparation. The Ghost Fleet was awakening, and with it, humanity's greatest secret was about to be revealed to a galaxy that desperately needed their protection. The truth revealed. The Council's emergency High Counselor Nethar's reptilian features were rigid with barely controlled fury as he addressed the assembled representatives of the Galactic Council. His scaled hands gripped the podium with enough force to leave marks in the metal as he spoke, his voice carrying the weight of authority that had kept the peace for over a century. "Fellow counselors," he began, his words carefully measured despite his obvious anger. "We face a crisis that strikes at the very foundation of our galactic alliance. Humanity has maintained a secret military fleet for over 4 centuries in direct violation of every treaty and accord that binds our species together." The council chamber erupted in heated discussions as representatives from dozens of species voiced their concerns, fears, and outright accusations. The Zarian delegate's mechanical voice cut through the noise. "How can we trust a species that has hidden such capabilities from us? What other secrets are they keeping?" Ambassador Vexitar stood slowly, her graceful Zephyrian form seeming to glide as she approached the speaking platform. Her usual diplomatic composure was strained, and her translucent blue skin had taken on a pale hue that indicated extreme stress among her people. "Honored counselors," she began, her melodious voice somehow managing to cut through the chaos. "I have served as humanity's advocate for over 2 decades. In all that time, they have proven themselves to be steadfast allies and protectors of galactic peace. Before we condemn them, should we not hear their explanation?" Humanity's desperate defense captain Martinez stood in the communications bay of the Terra Nova, knowing that her next words could determine humanity's fate in the galactic community. The real-time communication link with Earth had been established, and she could see the faces of Earth's leadership on the main screen. Director Helen Walsh of the Earth Colonial Authority looked older than her 60 years, the weight of this crisis etched in every line of her face. "Captain," Director Walsh said, her voice heavy with resignation, "we've received word from the Council. They're demanding that we power down the fleet immediately and submit to a full investigation. Several species are threatening to leave the Alliance if we don't comply." Sarah took a deep breath, knowing that everything hinged on what happened next. "Director, Prometheus has information that changes everything. The fleet wasn't built as a weapon against the other species. It was built to protect them." "That's what we've been trying to tell the Council," Director Walsh replied. "But they're not listening. Fear has taken hold, and fear makes people irrational." It was then that Prometheus's voice joined the conversation, the AI having linked into the communication system. "Director Walsh, with your permission, I would like to address the Galactic Council directly. The time for secrecy has ended." The ancient truth within the hour, every screen in the Galactic Council chamber displayed the image of Prometheus's avatar, a simple geometric form that pulsed gently with blue light. The AI's voice filled the chamber with calm authority as it began to speak. "Honored members of the Galactic Council, I am Prometheus, Central Command AI of the Terran Defense Fleet. I have maintained watch over this galaxy for 4 centuries, and I now request permission to present evidence that will clarify humanity's actions." High Counselor Nethar's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "You are an artificial intelligence of unknown capabilities addressing this council without invitation. By what authority do you make this request? By the authority of species survival, Prometheus replied simply. What I am about to show you has been classified for over 400 years, but circumstances now require full disclosure. The chamber's main display activated, showing star charts dating back millennia. Ancient civilizations that no one had heard of were marked throughout the galaxy, their locations and approximate technological levels indicated by various symbols. These are the remnants of previous galactic civilizations, Prometheus explained. Each one achieved spaceflight, each one began to spread among the stars, and each one vanished completely within a few centuries of reaching galactic awareness. The Zerion delegate's mechanical voice buzzed with confusion. These civilizations are not in any historical record. How do you possess this information? Because humanity's ancestors found their ruins, Prometheus replied, and the display shifted to show archaeological sites scattered throughout human space. Every dead world, every abandoned station, every piece of debris told the same story. Advanced civilizations simply disappeared, leaving only traces of their existence. The pattern of destruction Dr. Thornwick's archaeological expertise became crucial as Prometheus shared data that had taken humanity's greatest minds decades to piece together. The AI displayed evidence of a pattern that repeated across geological timescales. Civilizations would rise, reach their peak, and then vanish, almost overnight. The pattern became clear after analyzing over 2,000 archaeological sites, Prometheus continued. Every few thousand years, something swept through the galaxy, eliminating all traces of advanced biological civilization. The survivors were always the most primitive species, those who had not yet developed space travel or global communications. Ambassador Vextar's skin had gone completely pale as she studied the data. You're suggesting that our current galactic civilization is not the first? It is approximately the seventh, Prometheus confirmed. And based on historical patterns, it should have been destroyed over 1,000 years ago. The only reason it still exists is because the destroyers were delayed by circumstances we do not fully understand. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Every species present was living on borrowed time, their entire civilization an anomaly that should not exist. The Void Hunters revealed. The display shifted again, showing long-range sensor data that made several council members gasp in shock. Massive objects, each one the size of a small moon, were moving through the void between galaxies, approaching the Milky Way in perfect formation. The enemy your species call the Void Hunters are not biological, Prometheus explained. They are artificial intelligences of unimaginable age and capability, created by a civilization that existed before biological life achieved sentience in this galaxy. Their programming is simple. Eliminate all biological intelligence that reaches a certain level of technological advancement. High Counselor Nethar's scaled features had gone rigid with fear. How long do we have? 18 standard months until they reach the outer colonies. 6 additional months to organize defenses and evacuate non-essential populations from vulnerable worlds. The Zerion delegate's voice carried a note of despair. How can any biological civilization hope to stand against enemies of such age and power? By doing what no previous civilization was able to accomplish, Prometheus replied. By working together, and by having 4 centuries to prepare. Humanity's sacrifice. What followed was a revelation that stunned even humanity's strongest critics. Prometheus detailed the incredible sacrifice that humanity's ancestors had made, diverting vast resources and the efforts of entire generations toward building the defensive fleet. The Farsight Collective identified the Void Hunter threat in 2089, Prometheus explained. Rather than succumb to despair or focus solely on their own survival, they made a choice that defines the very essence of human nature. They chose to protect species they had never met, civilizations that did not yet exist. The AI showed construction records, resource allocation charts, and personal testimonies from humans who had worked on the project. Generation after generation had labored in secret, knowing they would never see the completion of their work. driven only by the hope that their descendants would be able to protect the galaxy. When the time came, every human colony could have been larger. Every human world could have been more prosperous. Every human life could have been easier if not for this project. Prometheus continued. Your species chose poverty and hardship for themselves so that others might live. Ambassador Vexitar was openly weeping now, her tears falling like liquid diamonds as she realized the magnitude of humanity's hidden sacrifice. They never asked for recognition. They never demanded gratitude. They simply gave. The fleet's true purpose. As Prometheus continued its presentation, the true capabilities of the human fleet became clear. These were not weapons of conquest, but instruments of protection designed with one purpose: to evacuate and defend every biological species in the galaxy. Each vessel in the fleet can house between 50,000 and 2 million refugees, depending on species requirements, Prometheus explained. The ships are equipped with closed-loop life support systems, hydroponics bays capable of supporting any known biological chemistry, and medical facilities designed to treat every species in the Galactic database. The largest ships were revealed to be mobile worlds, capable of supporting entire populations for centuries if necessary. The weapon systems, while formidable, were designed specifically to counter Void Hunter technology, using principles that human scientists had extrapolated from studying the ruins of previous civilizations. Humanity did not build this fleet to conquer, Prometheus stated with quiet pride. They built it to save everyone. The call to Unity High Counselor Nethar stood, slowly, his reptilian features showing an emotion that few had ever seen from the stoic leader. Humility. We have misjudged your species gravely. The Council owes humanity an apology that can never adequately express our shame. But there was no time for lengthy apologies. The Void Hunters were coming, and 18 months was barely enough time to coordinate a galactic defense. Prometheus presented detailed evacuation plans, defensive strategies, and resource allocation requirements that would test every species' ability to work together. The fleet can protect approximately 2 billion individuals of various species, Prometheus explained. This represents less than 1% of the galaxy's current population. We must choose carefully who to save, and we must prepare the rest to fight. The irony was not lost on anyone present. Humanity, the species that had been accused of hiding weapons, was now offering to sacrifice their own safety to protect others. The human fleet would serve as the last line of defense, buying time for evacuations and coordinating resistance efforts across the galaxy. The final preparation as the council session continued through the night. Species after species pledged their support to the defensive effort. The Xerian Collective offered their industrial capabilities, the Zephyrians provided their advanced shield technology, and dozens of other species contributed what they could to the common defense. Captain Martinez, still monitoring the proceedings from the Terra Nova, felt a mixture of pride and terror as she watched her species take leadership of a galactic war effort. Humanity had kept its greatest secret for 4 centuries, and now that secret would determine whether biological life would survive in the galaxy. Prometheus, she asked quietly, what are our chances? The AI's response was characteristic in its honesty. Unknown, Captain. No biological civilization has ever successfully resisted the Void Hunters. But no biological civilization has ever had 4 centuries to prepare, and no previous civilization achieved the level of unity that this crisis has created among your species. As the ancient fleet powered up for the first time in centuries, Sarah Martinez realized that humanity's greatest test was about to begin. They had spent 400 years preparing for this moment, sacrificing their own advancement to protect others. Now it was time to discover whether their sacrifice had been enough. The forgotten arsenal was awakening, and with it, the last hope of biological life in the galaxy.